we had elected a Republican to, after Fred Hampton's assassination, we elected a Republican to which office? I've forgotten which office, but a very important office, county commissioner, who ran against a liberal and beat him. I'm trying to think of, he's dead now too. But point is that Daley is beginning to see the drift away from him. If we don't vote Democrat, unfortunately by this time we have become wedded in the Democratic Party shift. Mm-hmm. We don't vote. We won't vote at all. From a turnout of about 80% with a high registration level for Johnson to a drop of somewhere around 35 to 40% of the potential in the elections that come after that. Data can see there are now other people who believe they can beat him prepared to run against him. He has in his own staff people that he is wavering about being able to trust. And so he is working overtime. Mm-hmm. And at his age, physically weakening. And when he had that sudden heart attack and died, the King struggle is a reflection of his rise and fall. Mm-hmm. Within much of the cause being in the black and the liberal white community. See, the Jewish community did not vote in any numbers for Epton when Harold ran. And that's the reason he was running. One of the reasons. Epton was not a bad guy.
Now, after the late Mayor Daley died, of course, he was followed by Belandic, who was beaten by Mayor Byrne. Now, do I have it right? Were you, for a time, in the Mayor Byrne transition team, and then what went wrong with that relationship?
Well, when the mayor died, I was in one of my favorite taverns in the son of that 35th and Kenny Drive. And someone's made a decision we're going to try to run a black for mayor. And we checked a number of people. By this time, Harold Washington is in D.C. And we hadn't thought of him so much, but we're trying to check out a number of people. Daley, the Daley's the machine, had negative evidence against almost every one of them because of what I had said. They could prove it. They could prove it.
So now when you say we, who are some of the other African-American leaders you're...
Lou Palmer, Lou Palmer, Bennett Johnson, West Side is, I was just at the house last night, the woman. Oh boy, what a mess. But there were people from the West Side and the South Side and the Latino community who wanted to have a candidate that they could support, have confidence in. And so when there was no African American or Latino, we then went to support the woman who had been insulted. I felt that she'd been insulted in the Democratic party, Jane Byrne. And anybody, but you see, with Atlantic, during the snowfall of
1979. Right.
He even stopped the transportation, public transportation, coming through the black community particularly, slowed it down. He just, so I was standing on the corner of 51st and Cottage, waiting for a bus, and the buses just go right on past. A young black guy was standing there and said, what's wrong? I said, well, you know, you guys stay at home when you should be out voting, and that's what's wrong. He is going towards the people who vote. And until you do those people, you're going to be having the bus pass by. So there was an urgency, a feeling of that people like myself and Lou Palmer and, you know, who was an activist, journalist and an activist, pushed Jane Byrne. Jane Byrne came through in the primary, running against a Republican. In the general, she was a shoo-in. And University of Illinois professor, UIC. Dick Simpson. And myself and others like us were busy stimulating people to get registered and vote. And so I was kind of the front person to go with Jane Byrne into public housing. She moved into it. And that's
she moved into Cabrini Green.
Cabrini Green. I'd take Jane Byrne into public housing because people had a certain level of confidence in me because I'm so dumb and inexperienced. They would trust me to be her advocate. And a lot of times they would say things like, let's see, Jane Byrne, I'm going to vote for Jane Byrne, that old bitch. That was the complication of their feelings. So Jane Byrne won in the primary, then in the general. Immediately, she began to turn around. The night that she won, I was in New York to a conference. She called me up and said, thank you so much, thank you so much. But by the time I got back home, she had been captured by the Democratic arm, and I forget the white Jewish guy that was out in California at that time, who was kind of the leader of the status quo.
Was it Marshall Korshak? Or
it may have been Marshall. Marshall living still. Yeah, I think it was. It may have been, but it was a contingent of the Daleyites that wanted a continuation. And they got her into the Dick Simpson and I, who had kind of been the initiators of the idea of getting, and that, of course, as a woman, this helped us. She went over into the machine just as Claude Hoban had done. We couldn't get in to even say hello to her. Then in the summer of 1986, when by this time she had appointed a conservative to the Board of Education and to other organizations like that, public housing under a opportunist. And so he was making much more money in that role than he was making in his regular one. He was already rich.
Charles Schweibel.
Schweibel, that's right. thank you for helping so much. Man. It's good to be around smart people because they fill in where you fall off. And so she had betrayed her backups early. And that's when Lou Palmer coined the phrase, I would say 87, coined the phrase, we shall see in 83. Uh-huh. And that phrase caught on. So the Daley, combination of Daley and Byrne running was a very good opportunity when Harold ran in 1987 because they took votes from each other, and Harold barely won. Now the conflict within the...
But this is 1983.
Yeah, 83. I missed.
And then he ran again.
Yeah, but even at that time, we had to keep the supporters of President Richard Daley and Jane Byrne, we had to keep both of those in the race. Had to keep both of them in the race. And Epton stepped forward to be, with his hope to be the first Jewish mayor.
Yeah, he was running as the Republican.
As a Republican. He had been a Republican, but his behavior was Democratic. Right. See, at the time when he was in state representative, there were 3 people elected from the same district. Mm-hmm. And they would either be 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, or 2 Democrats and 1 Republican. Because of where he lived in South Shore, he ran as a Republican, so he could be assured of winning. But I had 2 of his kids in my class at Hyde Park High School. And so he began to get ready for the race and got in as a Republican. And it shows where race does matter. When he was running solo, so he won. And when Harold defeated both Daley, Richard M., and Jane Byrne, we assumed, no, we didn't quite assume, that what had happened when Jane Byrne won would be the case. Jane Byrne had a landslide when she ran in the general, but when Harold was running in the general against Epton, he barely won. He less than 50,000 votes he won by, in a city that for years and years since the early 1930s had been a strong Democratic. So I mean, a lot of people had shifted. I had to call, because he was Jewish, I had to deal with my Jewish friends. And the present commissioner of social programs, Jewish. Oh, God.
You mean Lois Weisberg?
Lois, yeah, I had to call her. And of course, we started things much earlier on the independent basis, so I had to call Lois to say, it's not just the race or the religion. We need a person that we know has experience and commitment, and Harold Washington is that person.